Hey, what's going on, guys? B-Flat in here with a brand new video today. Today we're going over the patch notes for Borderlands 4 that were updated today, October 2nd. This is going to be primarily the Vault Hunter skill and interactions patch. If you're an Amon lover or main, you're probably going to be really enjoying this one. Let's go right into it, shall we? There's going to be a lot of changes to like Vex's summon, Rafa's melee power gets adjusted. There is the weekly activities that get changed over. The Encore boss is now different. Wildcard mission is different. Maurice's vault changes. For Harlowe, to start off, action skill 0 point. Stasis slam damage is increased by 30%, and the immune damage is increased by 14.7. Into Rafa, the lance is increased damage by 10%. Project Raiju damage now scales by 12% per second, up from 10. Basilisk damage increased by 15%. Basilisk hazard damage increased by 25%. Gorgon damage increased by 17%. Critical hit damage increased to 8% from 7% per point of Alcatrin. Bonus shock damage increased from 8 to 7 as well, or 8 from 7 as well. Per my last, the double damage chance increased to 6% from 5% per point. Arc Knives action skill, the melee attack damage is increased by 12%, and dash damage is increased by 5%. Crazy. Handshake deal, melee damage increased to 9%. To the last, skill damage increased to 8%. Alparagus, splash damage increased to 9%. Crazy. Liquidation, damage increased by 50%. Huge. Cooperative ignition, bonus damage increased to 8%. Synergia, I can't pronounce any of these. Duration increased to 14 seconds. Melee damage increased to 4%. This one, action skill duration increased to 7%. Vex, action skills incarnate. Phase explosion damage increased by 16%. Eldritch Blast damage increased by 9.5%. Vextillation, energy vampire damage increased by 25%. Capstone's Vextillation again. Heart Piercer damage increased by 22%. Desecration Hazard increased by 50%. Desecration Airborne Burst increased by 48%. Geist Wave damage increased by 41%. Passives, the Radiant Attunement now deals 7% splash. Dreadlight Hazard damage increased by 100%. ARS Arcana now increases skill damage by 9%. Action skill Phase Familiar, Trouble Health increased by 10%, and the damage increased by 21%. That's actually really big because Trouble was really struggling. Augments Here Comes Trouble, Violent Outburst damage increased by 12%, and Vorpal Fang damage increased by 34%. Trouble Bubble damage increased by 33%. Blood is Magic now increases action skill damage by 8%. Claw and Bang now increases melee damage by 8%. Passive the Force Seal, Fell Inscription's melee damage increased by 7%. Recurrence now increases melee damage by 0.2% per stack. Haruspec's Phase Dagger damage increased by 11%. And now for the big one, Amon. Action skill Scourge. Scourge had its maximum vengeance increased by 50%, making it able to absorb more damage and deal more damage when Forge Whip is consumed. Forge Whip damage has been increased by 27%. Vengeance, Blast Chill damage increased by 45%. Molten Rebuke increased by 86%. Eternal Winter, massive Forge Wage damage increased by 100%. Stormlands damage increased by 52%. Stormlands Detonation increased by 10%. Vengeance, Glacier Rupture Capstone now has a 60-second cooldown from 70. Forge Whip damage increased by 16%. Glacial Rapture Fissure damage increased by 41%. Wrathfall damage increased by 46%. Passive's Vengeance, Scorched Kairos now increases ordnance damage by 6%. Battleborn now increases gun damage by 4%. Scar Tissue now increases maximum health and rep kit healing by 9%. Eternal now increases action skill duration by 5%. World Breaker damage increased by 50%. Winter's Kiss now increases damage dealt by 10%. Strike the Anvil now deals 15% of the damage dealt, up from 12%. That's good. Action skill Crucible, Forge Axe damage increased by 12%. Double Edges Twin Forge Axe increased by 10%. Augments Cybernetics. Axe and Stones skill cooldown restoration increased to 40%. Action skill Ordnance up to 40%. Endless War gun damage taken is increased to 20%. Forge Hammer damage increased by 14% from Hour of the Hammer. Blade Tempest, Forged Sword damage increased by 13%. Blade Tempest, Forged Sword detonation damage increased by 4%. Capstone Cybernetics, Snowmaul damage increased by 38%. Storm Surge impact damage increased by 10. Storm Surge Forged Storm damage increased by 60. Conflangarang, Capstone Fire trail damage is increased by 100%. So many tongue twisters. Passive Cybernetics, oh boy. Gathering Storm now increases elemental damage by 3%. Executioner now increases critical hit damage by 4%. Destruction Engine now increases forge skill damage by 6%. Destruction Engine now increases detonation damage by 8%, sorry. Tempered Pyre Forge Axe damage increased by 19%. Tempered Ice Forge Hammer increased by 18%. Masterwork now increases Forge Drone damage by 10. Masterwork now increases Forge Drone duration by 8. Tempered Lightning, Forge Sword damage increased by 13%. Lightning Rod Elemental Bolt now deals 40% of the damage dealt. Escalation now increases Forge Drone's attack speed and movement speed by 5%. Honed Point now increases Forge Drone's critical hit chance by 5. Heat Exchange now increases cryo and fire damage by 8%. Action skills Onslaughter. Onslaughter shield regeneration increased to 15%. Onslaughter Rocket Punch damage increased by 78%. Molten Slam now has a 60-second cooldown. Molten Slam damage increased by 50%. Calamity. Fellfrost damage increased by 71%. Fulminating Fist damage increased by 69%. Calamity as well, Capstone. Cleave now has a 55-second cooldown. Cleave damage increased by 11%. The detonation is increased by 18%. Molten Royal has a 70-second cooldown. Stormcutter now has a 65-second cooldown. Stormcutter damage increased by 65%. Passive Calamity, Heavy Plate now increases maximum shield capacity by 7%. Wheel the Storm increases status effect damage and duration by 7. Titanium Knuckles now increases melee damage by 8%. Tritanium Knuckles is increased skill damage by 4%. Harbinger now increases melee damage by 2% per stack. Molten Flare damage or Mortal Flare damage increased by 22%. Judgment now increases melee damage by 10%. And that is everything that we have there. Amon obviously got a lot of love in this one. If you're an Amon main or if you haven't started one like me, now might be the time. Vex got quite a bit, Rafa got quite a bit, Harlowe didn't really need much adjustments, I guess. If you want to take a look at the patch notes yourself, I'll toss them into the description. Apparently there is some changes as well, hopefully some stability that got included that wasn't exactly mentioned, but primarily the Vault Hunter one. Who is your main? Are you going to be starting a new character? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video. My name is Beefland, and I'm signing on out of here. Take care, all. Laters.